Okay, it is now 7:06 p.m. and calling the meeting to order.
Commissioner Ali,
Present.
Commissioner Daniel,
Present.
no, she's not muted. Can you say present again, just so I can see if I need to check the volume?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Gathawa,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Harris,
Is in the attendees list.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Nobis, don't see. Commissioner Rivera,
Present.
and Commissioner Traore.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. With that, on to agenda item number 3, reading of land acknowledgement and discussion.
I can read it. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom which we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk. And because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work towards equity, restoration, and reparations.
Next, we have the approval of meeting minutes from October 7th, 2021. The only change I have is on the final page of the meeting minutes with the announcements of commissioners, just a project Better Together 2030. Other than that, nothing else.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any changes for meeting minutes?
I don't.
I don't, but I think there are only 4 present today that were present for the last meeting.
Yeah.
So I think we'd have to abstain.
No, you can still, I mean, you're not, you're just basically approving the minutes as presented.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Motion to approve?
Seconded, Rivera.
Okay, Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathawa,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, public comment of items not on the agenda. Commentator shall address the TRC for no more than 5 minutes. TRC members shall not engage in discussion with the public concerning said items. Do we have anyone present here or within the Zoom meeting that would like to make any comments? If you're in the Zoom, feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you. Okay, so we do not have any public comment. On to agenda item number 6, community comment on the TRC's charges, including fact-finding and truth-telling. So since we already have this kind of discussion on TRC's charges later, we can just let the community comment at this time. Oh, we have Sakalis.
Yeah.
Okay, so currently on agenda item number 6, community comment on the TRC's charges, including fact-finding and truth-telling. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item? All right, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, updates on the progress of the Fund Excluded Workers Coalition and the American Rescue Plan. Do we have anyone from the community that would like to speak on this before the commission? All right, do we have anyone on the TRC that would like to make any comments on agenda item number 7?
Yeah, I can go real quick. I know that recently, so what we set it up as that we can have pushes against all of the like different counties, so we can push back against Muscatine County and different places. And so now, in some of these places, they've set up their own excluded workers fund. You know, it's kind of like a TRC works. You know, one TRC forms, more form. So that's what they did. I have to look at the date exactly. I think it may be Tuesday or Wednesday. It's going to be the last public speaking about it. So I talked with David. I'm pretty sure that they expect to have a large crowd, and we'll see how that goes. And the only other thing that I would say about it is, I feel like it was a pretty good campaign. And one thing that I observed from it is that I wish the TRC had as much help as they had, you know, and as much support as they had, because the amount of support that they had, it was unwavering, without any conditions. And it was even so much of a campaign that David and Emily won a human rights award for it. I'll be going with them on Tuesday to a breakfast that they're gonna have about it, because I was the one that won it last year. So I would definitely like to just shout out to all their hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else from the commission that would like to comment on this item?
I had it on silence.
Just want to say thank you, Eric, for the updates and keeping up with everything. And you said that this was Wednesday, correct? And is it around 6 p.m., I think, for the listening session?
Yeah, I'll send you the information
Okay, thank you.
after I go back and look at it.
I believe there's a dual city council, Johnson County supervisor meeting. I think it's like November 17, maybe? I'll have to look it up, but I know that that's coming up too. Or maybe it's like a work session. Maybe that's what it is.
According to their tentative schedule, it looks like the city council has a work session, informal meeting on November 16th and then November 30th.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think it's the 11/16 meeting that they're going to be talking with the county, the ARPA funds.
Okay.
Like Johnson County,
Go ahead.
they're going to talk October 27th at 5 o'clock, 913 South Dubuque Street. And David sent me a message about it. I'm not that great at Spanish, but I do know what this word means, and it means demonstration. So it's going to be a big, because I think it's the last one for the county. So they're going to turn out really big.
Eric, do you think there's a need for us to come up with another recommendation to kind of consider and make a motion on next week based on ongoing events with the Fund Excluded Workers Coalition?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, because by that time, the October 27th thing, like that would have happened, and then that could be more of an update. And I don't think that he's going to quit. So it's always going to be something to update about. So I think it's something that we should have regular updates on. Even when they get to the point to where they make a choice and they start, whatever they figure out what they're going to do with the money, and we need to call that out and say, this is what you're doing, shelter house, blah, blah, blah. You're giving it to other nonprofits and not to the people who need it. So this is far from over. So
I'll contact you a little bit later, Eric, and we can get in touch with the coalition and see what kind of recommendation we can present next week.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll see him. I'll see David on Tuesday too, as well. So yeah, so they should get up with me real soon, so we could talk about it.
Awesome, thank you.
We now have agenda item number 8, which was TRC framework. So everyone's had a lot of questions about kind of just next steps, what we're really here for, what we're looking to do going forward. I'm not sure if this is completely confirmed yet, but there may be a work session that we have at some point before the end of the year with council. But before that comes, best to get on the same page. I do know that Eduardo is willing to do a workshop or a few of them with us if we just identify like 2 to 3 key topics we're really looking to hear about, or that we want him and his group to present on. So we have that as an option for one. The next thing other than that, I've kind of just been reading over the resolution over the past week, and just speaking very frankly, it's a lot of just like, it's tough reading it and being here now. So if we do have that work session, there's going to be a lot of clarity we're going to need on if this needs to be narrowed, in that sense of like, hey, this is what you wrote, but these specific paragraphs are what we want to focus on. Or these specific paragraphs, we've tried to do these things and they haven't been done. But the one major thing in here that Amel has pointed out and Chastity has pointed out as well is the most important thing is getting a truth-telling event together. So I'm really interested in those workshops with Eduardo, so we can get more clarity on how he's done these things in the past, his experiences with them, and then try to get one together sometime in the next few weeks, whether that's at a nonprofits event or in a closed meeting with them or in a public space of some sort. But likely going to have to be that way. So I think it's too difficult at this time to plan it in conjunction with the city, getting the space, staffing, etc. So
I think it would be worthwhile to kind of plan right now times to meet in smaller subcommittees to kind of discuss what we want to get clarity from council. I think that would be a good idea, because I don't really know what this work session is going to entail, but I think asking them as many questions related to the mandate that they approved, a year ago is really important, and making sure that we're very concise and to the point when it comes to our questions, that we don't just allow the questions to go unanswered and stuff like that. And Daphne, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So as far as meeting with the subcommittees, I don't have any intention of having the housing committee, the members of the housing committee subgroup, take time out of their day to discuss things that should have already been figured out from the beginning of this of the TRC. We don't have the power to make things happen. What questions we have is, are you going to grant us an extension? And if so, are we going to be able to use the money you've set aside for us? And if City Council answers no to either one of those questions, then what is there to ask further? With that, I yield.
I can't say that I disagree with that point, but I think it's fair to see kind of how other people feel about that. And I guess that also kind of ties into the next agenda item too. So
Before we go to the next one, I just want to note one part of this resolution in particular, number 5 on here. With the charges of the TRC set forth herein, the TRC is not required to seek approval from the City Council, Mayor, or City Manager to set its own agenda and prioritize its activities. So just know that when it comes to a truth-telling event or anything such as that, there's no approval required.
There's a copy of the resolution in the packet. It's a few pages in.
But the resolution really outlines the charges and everything. I don't know what questions we'd have as that we can't discuss at one of these meetings or email each other about or something. What are these questions that we have not been asking for the past several months? They're just not answering us. I think it's kind of, it starts to seem kind of pathetic that we keep going back to the City Council with the same questions, with the same issues and the same people and things serving as obstacles, and they haven't really lifted a finger to do anything except pay lip service. I just don't see I just don't see how this helps us.
Well, one of the things I thought about is, because what was the date that's supposed to happen on, what, like November 17th?
The 30th.
The 30th? So we have to take in mind, it could be a totally different landscape by that point. You know, some people going out the door. So it could be a different landscape at that point. So, because I've been paying attention to the like races, and seems like a person that I don't agree with a lot. He's doing a little bit of gaining, and that'd be a surprise, you know. If I see Jason Glass gain some more, because I already been seeing him that he's been gaining, that'd be a surprise to me. But we'll see, because sometimes you don't forget things, so. You know, I don't forget, you know, all the bad comments I had to listen to from certain members of council in the past few months. So sometimes you might have to pick the lesser of two evils. With that, I'm yield.
This is Commissioner
So,
Rivera. Go ahead, Daphne.
I just, thank you. I just want clarification. Would this meeting be to meet with the post-election council to get their impressions or their thoughts on the TRC? Is that the goal, to meet with a possibly new group of people, or?
It would be the currently sitting council on November 30th.
Okay.
I agree with Commissioner Daniel that I don't think that I want to keep trying to work with the current city council with its current makeup. I think it is a waste of time, but I do think that there are other things that we can do that are productive and I think will be integral to our work. As you guys know, I feel pretty strongly that this TRC can't really do its job unless we start reaching out to community organizations who are already doing a lot of the work and heavy lifting and working with marginalized BIPOC individuals in our communities. And so my suggestion would be that over the next 2 weeks, we spend a lot of time brainstorming which organizations we would like to reach out to and partner with, and then for us to maybe send a list together to Steph, and then we can all kind of decide at our next meeting who we do want to partner with as a commission, and who might be kind of the liaison for all of those that we identify. I really envision this going to a place where, we start reaching out to these organizations and say, what would it look like for us, the TRC, to co-sponsor a listening session with you and all the people that you serve? How would we set that up? How soon do you think that we can do that and start kind of working out certain logistics? And then I think that we can also preliminarily ask different groups, like, I don't know, what would you like to see with $1 million that have been set aside for the TRC and for racial equity in our community that have otherwise not been used. And I don't think that that needs to be the basis of the recommendations that we give at the very end of our report, but I think that can really help us start to sink some teeth into to our charges and our mission. And I think that the suggestions that I'm making, at least in the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks, are productive and free.
I'll go. This is Commissioner Gadua. I do agree with the commissioners who are saying right now, going to the current city council, yes, it might even be counterproductive. That being said, what Commissioner Rivera is saying is giving me what I have been wondering all along: the overall framework of carrying out our charges. And what I'm hearing is, and to me, that gives me some unstuckness of moving forward and either inviting groups or organizations or individuals to come to us, wherever that may be, and we fact find from them or listen to them, and also as outreaching to the groups and to the individuals, and like you said, working with them, and they might actually be having the answers on how, for example, if I'm thinking of myself in 3 ways. In the ICCSD school district, how I usually work with them when advocating for African and families, and then NISA for African families again who survive and are victims of domestic violence. How do we go about that? And then also as a member of the African communities who are outside those 2 areas that I've mentioned. So those are just examples. So for me, I see what I've been searching all along, the framework on how to do this. Now, then we need also to figure out the logistics of a record of that as we go. How do we get this raw information, which later we'll work on and decide how to put it together to give to the city. And yeah, that is something definitely we can do and we are able to do. And of course, as we go, some of it is there's some use of resources. So, and I think that will answer one of the questions. There's money set aside and resources, other resources in the space and things like that in the city, which to me, I still see it's things that we are able to do without necessarily having to go for another right now, which would look like a waste of time with the current council. But then, even with all that, there is something for resolution for number 6. At some point, because I'm thinking it's put as number 6 before number 11 for a reason. Number 6 shall be, the TRC shall be facilitated by an independent consultant. So that has failed twice now. So we are going ahead with number 11, but still, I'm thinking from the discussions we've been having from now, September 21, that we've kind of shelved that for the time being with this current city council. So I will yield as I thank Commissioner Rivera for kind of giving me a light bulb moment and all the other discussions that the previous commissioners have had as far as a framework is concerned. And then, of course, we have the other little ones as we work in our subcommittees to do that, and even at an individual level. Thank you. With that, I yield.
One thing I really do agree on, just quickly here, is that likely a waste of time, but a waste of time for a few things. One, it says in here, the focus of this commission is on race. The creation of an ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission is in the best interest of the city and its residents. TRC is not required to seek approval from the city council, mayor, or city manager to set its own agenda and prioritize its activities. And then it lists our charges as fact-finding, truth-telling, reconciliation, and getting the final report in there. So those are the parts I'm choosing to focus on. Whatever happens in that November 30th meeting, honestly, whatever. Not thinking about it, not worrying about it. Questions to ask them, I'm more looking for them to just talk because it's them requesting that we come in, not us asking at this point. Asked the questions 3 weeks ago, just getting a meeting on November 30th, so not waiting that long. Also, yeah, as you said, let's just worry about the community members themselves and yeah, just have the events outside of it, try to get some kind of testimony to bring to them. And to me, that's the only deliverable. Other than that, whatever they have to say, they can say.
Yeah, I agree. Earlier in the week, I got some type of correspondence that I had got about a guy, and he told a story about how he was in Johnson County Jail, and the deputies assaulted him, and he's still injured from the assaults. And I looked at the date on the jail letter that I read, and now, like, soon after he wrote this letter, he was sent away to a different county 2 days later. Well, now he's all the way in Lee County, which is Fort Madison, which is a far away place from here, but he has a story that he wants to tell. So I'm going to try to get that figured out, whether I can send him, some money and record a phone call with him, or get him to write something else out to get more detailed about what happened. So I'm going to see what's going on with that, because he said 2 Johnson County deputy sheriffs beat him and another person of color, and he said he's still going through the injuries. That I'm gonna yield.
Yeah, so in terms of just following the open meetings rules, we'll just be sure to defer the rest of this discussion to subcommittees, if that works for everyone.
Yep.
All right.
So what are we talking about in our subcommittee? This is Commissioner Rivera. What are we talking about in our subcommittees?
As long as the subcommittee you choose to talk to has 4 people or less within it, however you'd like to plan outreach to community organizations we know of, And
Can we as a commission decide on a list like of organizations that we want to work with before we do that?
Yeah, we could. What we could do is I could start a list in our Google Drive, and then we could add to that if you want to.
I was gonna
Or do you want
come up with a
to?
list and send it to Stephanie, and then say anyone else who knows of an organization that is reaching these community members and wants to add it, then just email Stephanie with those names.
Yeah, we could do that.
So what we're doing is inviting everyone in to discuss who are leaders of the community.
Right now, we're brainstorming the organizations that all of us know of and all of us maybe have connections with that we would like to consider at our next meeting, so that this commission can decide, here's the list of organizations that we want to partner with, and then at that meeting too, we can decide which one of us wants to formally liaise with each of those organizations.
So at the next meeting, they'll be here.
No. At the next meeting, we're just deciding if we want to work with them as a commission.
Right, it's kind of similar to how we did with the excluded workers. We just picked like a few people out, and that's who we decided was going to go over there and be like an ambassador toward them, basically.
yeah, if any of them want to present, of course they can, but
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I'm thinking that it's necessary for us to agree on who our partners are is because I don't want us to overextend in building relationships if we as a commission don't think that it's worth it, right? Like, I can see there's an argument for saying, okay, let's partner with ICCSD because they, capture students, but I mean, maybe that's not the vibe of this commission and who I want to go out for, and maybe we would just want to work with IC Compassion and NISA and things like that. So, I think it's worthwhile for us to just throw as many names out there as possible, including like groups within Kirkwood and groups within the UI, and then for us to sit down and say, okay, who are the most, interesting and important partners here, so that we can start creating a calendar or ideas of who we can reach out to after that.
That sounds like we have a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll send Steph an initial list. It obviously won't be comprehensive, but reply to that email with as many organizations as you can think of that could be relevant to this work.
and with that, on to Chastity.
I just have a question. Would it be like, I think it's great that we would put our own or whatever we want for the list, but I feel like there's a list of organizations out there somewhere that we could just grab onto. I don't know if the city has it or the Johnson County Social Services. I don't know if Stephanie might know about that.
Well, I think there are a lot of lists out. It could probably get pretty long just because of how they categorize things. But I will search around and see what I can locate.
Okay, thank you.
On that, Commissioner Rivera, I'm wondering when you're thinking of whom you're working with, I'm kind of, I wonder whether what are you thinking of information-rich organizations in what we are looking for, evidence of all truths and fact-finding on, I think now I'm thinking out loud. So,
Sorry, can you
because
restate your question?
we are definitely not just getting organizations in Iowa City.
Sorry, can you just restate the beginning of that question?
I'm trying to think, so which organizations are we looking for? I guess I went back to, I had some clarity, but now I've lost it.
I'm leaving it vague so that we can have a really big list and then we can whittle it down at our next meeting. But, one way that you can think about it is, local organizations who explicitly in their mission, reach out to minoritized, racialized groups in Iowa City. Or we can say, these are the groups and organizations or institutions in this community who have the widest reach among those populations, even if their mission isn't necessarily geared towards those groups.
Yeah.
BIPOC organizations.
Right.
Okay.
Like places like the Dream City, places like that. They could be all a part of those lists. And in my announcements, I explained why that should probably be one that's on the list. So.
I think the reason that this is important is because if we're right now not going to have a paid facilitator, then we really need to lean on some of the manpower from these organizations to help us. And woman power and non-binary power.
So yeah, in that case, let's do the lists, and then the next meeting, look to whittle that down. And just know, you don't have to only think of the list on your own. You can, of course, ask anyone else in the community what they think to get a better picture.
Just trying to get a grasp on this. We're going to decide which groups we're going to reach out to next week.
Yeah,
or
next
time.
meeting.
Next meeting? All right.
Yeah, and of course, you can always reach out to the person in advance and let them know, see if they're even interested before we have the discussion.
I personally believe we should just invite everybody. I feel like inviting everybody would be, everybody has truth. So to invite everybody, we can break it down a little bit when we get here, but I feel like inviting everybody and saying, look, this is the platform we have, let's use it, and take this time to make sure we have everyone's attention and discuss it.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that we can continue inviting all of these leaders to our meetings. We meet every 2 weeks or twice a month, and they can come whenever they want. But I think what we're talking about is fostering relationships so that we can host some of these listening sessions in a finite amount of time. We don't have unlimited time to host 1 million listening sessions by the time that this commission is done. So I do think that we need to be strategic with the energy that we're putting into this work for free and with the time that we have.
Understood.
Yeah, and then to add to that, Commissioner Johnson, I'm thinking of the listening posts the City Council had that ended up creating the TRC. They invited everybody. And I remember saying in one of their posts in September 2020, we didn't have the people, and I stated that publicly, because it wasn't targeted like what we are planning, we know the BIPOC people are the most impacted by racial injustice. Yet, if that day you looked at Massa Park, you would think we really do not have, I'm just picking this as an example, we don't have black people in Iowa City, which we know is not the real picture because it wasn't targeted. It was an invite that was put there for whichever reason to me, and I stated that publicly. The group that would benefit most didn't come forward. So I'm thinking this is one of the different ways we are going about it, and also part of the reason why TRC was formed. And then, like Commissioner Rivera is repeating, we are short on time, we are short on staffing, so still, but working with what we have and the time that we have, I'm thinking it's the best way to go forward.
Understood.
Yeah.
I see Commissioner Dillard's hand up.
I just wanted to say, I think I shared similar concerns with Commissioner Johnson. I don't like the idea of us pulling a bunch of people and then choosing. If anyone wants to come forward, I think we should still be open to that partnership. I think that's what I'm really worried. I don't like the idea of being like, oh, we're only going to choose these 10 people, but then there's like 11, 12, and 13 that really want to work with this. I mean, I know we're on a time constraint, but I assume that we would still be open to whoever wants to come forward. And I yield.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think, like, there's no finite number that I've heard yet to this point. I think it's, again, just more of, there's more than likely going to be more of a core group of people that are going to want to have more correspondence, that are going to have more availability, because we don't know also what all these other organizations have going on right now. So that's the other thing to keep in mind of, it's one thing to say like, hey, we want to work with you. It's another of, do you have the time for this right now? So that's just going to be something.
Remind them that we have a very short window, and yeah, I can understand that, definitely. If we have a short window, I feel like we should move on it as fast as possible. So yeah, whatever gets this process rolling, I'm about that. But yeah, I do believe also we should have it open to a lot of people, because there's a lot of truth out there, and I mean, yeah, that's where I'm at with it as well.
I appreciate those comments, and I don't disagree. I think that, like, I'm not envisioning us creating a moat around, a core group of organizations that we're picking next week, but I think that my point is that we need to sort of have an idea of who next week we can start reaching out to, right? So each of us none of us can coordinate 10 different community organizations and be the liaison for all of those people and say, I'm going to independently start hosting listening sessions with 10 different groups, right? But like you are saying, if people want to work with us, then we should absolutely be open to them. And so I don't want to create walls or be a gatekeeper by any means, but I do think that we should identify who are going to be our initial contacts and their initial relationships that we're trying to foster.
How much has the city given us for advertising and reaching out to the community?
We have Jeff Fruin said that we can sort of make small requests through the Office of Human Rights. Is that the name of the office?
I remember, yeah.
No finite number I know of, but I do know if there's anything that you do get in advance of clearance of funds, just keep the receipts, send them in for getting paid back for it. If anyone needs help with anything on that in the meantime, let me know and we'll figure something out.
The best way to do it is, if there's something that needs to be paid, is to just contact me, and I can work with the organization or the business or the printing company, et cetera, and they can invoice the city, and it's just paid directly like that, so that commissioners are not using their own funds to pay for things. So if there's a cost that's incurred, then let me know, and we'll take care of that.
Interesting.
What's one of the most successful ways of reaching out to the people that we currently have with the city right now?
I'm not sure what you mean by
Like reaching out to the city or to people?
To the
in
entire,
general?
to everybody out there. Like, what is our means of, if they advertise, for example, a festival or something like that, how do
Sure.
they go about?
Yeah,
how
I
do
mean-
they go about doing that?
Yeah, there's a few different ways, but nothing, I say, beats a personal invite, reaching out, going to places where people are at. But in addition to that, there would be social media. I believe they're next door. And then there would be a city news release. So, and kind of, it's not uncommon, at least for the Human Rights Office, to do flyers and postcards and, put them up where people go where they'll see them, get things translated, so there's a lot of different opportunities. It's not really just one.
So we can do that. as
Correct.
well. I
Yeah.
love that.
Phone calls, face-to-face visits are best, if when possible.
Now, that wouldn't be by us, because we're not, we would have somebody do that for us, correct? Would the
You mean
city
like
take
the
care of
news
that?
release and the social media? That would go through a different division, but it would go to me, and then it would go to them, and then they push it out.
think that's great. I think that's exactly where we should go with things and push it like it's a festival. I feel like we're not getting phone calls and everything right now because a lot of people don't even know what we're doing right now to a certain level and degree. I mean, they know what we're doing, they know we're here, but I feel like with all the people we had out there supporting us, I feel like we need to make sure we keep on their tap and kind of get them more involved. And whatever ways we can promote that the city is willing to give us, to give them the opportunity to know what we're doing right now, I think we need to push that a little bit further. So, thoughts?
What are you wanting to promote?
That we are looking to give truth to people out there in the city. Anybody that's out there, I feel like, does everybody actually know what we're doing right now? Do they know where we're at? Or that's how I feel like. Do they even have a clue that we're having this meeting right now?
The vast majority of people know.
That's my point. So that's what I'm saying. However we can, if there's festival posters everywhere talking about we're doing this and we're doing that, then we should be able to use that same method to reach out to people and hope that that works a little bit more and bring people in a little bit more. That's just my thoughts with it.
Are you saying in terms of inviting people to these meetings?
Yeah,
like these like twice monthly meetings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And at every time we have these meetings, we should have a list of people on standby because time, just like we keep saying, goes by over and over. And every single week, we're always planning to plan. I worry about that a little bit because I feel like it's just getting lost, and I feel like it's a clock, a hourglass that's just every sand that drops, man. I really hope that we can kind of move people. People are there. They're interested. We just gotta keep their attention and keep them in tune. That's where I'm at with it. So, with that, I yield.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely be sure to be more specific on it and get on that end. But yeah, if anyone wants to have those calls individually or just kind of in those subcommittees of 4 or less, then we can just be sure to do that. Just want to make sure we don't kind of just talk in circles on this one for now, if that makes sense. Eric, sorry, did you have something?
No, I just gotta wait till announcements. I think it's more proper. It has something to do with this, but I think it should wait till announcements. So,
all right. So we do have agenda item number 9, which was discussion and vote on whether to recommend that City Council extend the timeline for the TRC to fulfill its charge. So this one was deferred from last week, and
Is there public comment?
yeah. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment on this?
So before we move off from number 8, we have agreed that for next meeting to have had sent various groups and organizations that we can work with.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. I'm sorry
Oh,
to
no, you're
have
fine.
moved us back. Yeah,
You're fine.
thank you.
Do we have any public comment for agenda item number 9? All right, so would anyone from the commission themselves like to start on this one?
Excuse me for 1 second.
1, 2, 3, 4. We'll have to pause.
Yeah, do we have to pause while he's,
I think you're okay, as long as it looks like he'll be right back, so I think you're fine. You're not taking any action.
okay.
I was kind of doing the math over here in my head. So the mandate for the TRC was signed at the end of September of 2020, and it had the TRC go until June 2022 with the report due in May 2022. So I was looking at if there was 2 ways that we wanted to do this. If we wanted to do it by requesting that they sign it officially and we start officially from their 11:30 meeting, then the new timeline would be the sign date is November 2021. Our end date for the commission would be August 2023, and the report would be due July 2023. Or if we wanted to have it start from when this new commission started, which was after the pause, and I believe that was in March. I think it was around the 15th or 16th that we had that meeting with the mayor and mayor pro tem. That would have us ending in January 2023 with a report due by December 2022. And if anyone needs me to repeat that, I can.
Yes, please. Thank you.
No worries. So this is about like the timelines specific to if we wanted to be fair about like either starting from when they sign it, assuming they would sign it on the 30th, or if we wanted to start the timeline from when the new commission started. So their old timeline, it was signed September 2020, the charges and everything. The end date was June 2022, and the report from the commission was due in May 2022. So assuming they sign and approve for an extension, and we want to start the extension on the November 30th date, and do the exact same time, it would be the commission ending in August 2023, and the report due in July 2023. And then the last option would be requesting that they start over from the day that the new commission was started, which I believe was in around mid-March. So that would be March 2021 would be the start. End date would be January 2023. And the report would be due in December 2022. So I think that it's important if we do vote to request an extension that we're very concrete on times and why we would want to have those or explain for the reasoning for asking for these specific timelines. From like the conversation earlier regarding like the November 30th meeting about like what we're going to ask from council, and I know a couple of commissioners agreed with what Commissioner Daniels said regarding not really needing to ask them for anything besides, just the extension or if we can use our money, which I totally agree with, and I think that we should still work to write up something to present to them or whatever on why we're asking for this, just to kind of validate it. And I know at our last meeting, I was very against it. I didn't want to ask for the extension. I thought it was kind of a waste of time, but I have thought about it and it does make sense, and it's, yeah, I just want to know what the rest of you guys think, especially the commissioners who weren't here the last time during this conversation, because there were only 2/3 of us present, so 3 of us were gone, so.
Well, I was here, but I would say that, I would vote for it kind of just like you said, and in the format that you have it right there, just as a formality. But I doubt if anything is happening. I doubt it. It might come to the fact that we might have to wait until we see some new faces around there before that even happens. Because I have to be real with myself. And I know it's one person specifically he's going to be the most difficult to let it even happen. He doesn't even want the commission to be working right now. So I'm going to vote yes. That we do that, but I don't have a lot of optimism about it. But I do like how you broke it down and gave them those options. So I will vote yes, but as far as me having confidence in it, I might have to wait to see some new faces inside that chamber.
To be frank, on this point of the extension, I think the only vote worth having, if we're going to have a vote, is whether to recommend that it's a permanent commission. The whole thing about the concrete deadlines and dates, the more I read about TRCs, the more I talk to people, it just makes less and less sense. I don't understand how we're going to have a hard deadline on looking at decades, centuries of policies, while stuff is currently going on top of that, and you never know what's going to happen in the future. So if there's a set of recommendations put forth, then it's, okay, we have these recommendations, those can be put off for however long. But if you have a permanent commission, then there's that permanent pushback, and there is that permanent oversight. And there is also the ability to continue collecting testimonies and let the community know this is not just a one-time thing. It's over when the job is done, not when the city decides the job is done.
I would like to piggyback on that. I wholeheartedly agree again. I've always felt that way, that we should always have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There should not be a deadline to it. If I had to choose, I would obviously pick the latest date possible, because this is not something that happened overnight, so it's not something that's going to be solved overnight. There's no way for me to wrap my head around all of a sudden an incident happened, so we decided to step up, and then we walked away as soon as the incident died down. That simply doesn't make sense in no way, shape, or form to me. It's very frustrating to even think that we shouldn't have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I am mind blown at that, especially, let's face it, with life. We've seen how life is. We've seen time and time again incidents after incident after incident take place, and what do we think? It all just disappears and goes away? I don't think so at all. There's no way. So therefore, we need to make sure we're always here to stand up for those who need their voice heard. There's no reason at all to not have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission permanent. I don't believe that at all. I feel like that's quieting voices that don't need to be quieted. If we're a community that's progressive, that is trying to do the right thing, it just simply doesn't make sense. So I wholeheartedly stand by extending as long as we can, if not permanent. I definitely agree.
And
See Commissioner Dillard's hand up, and then I would like to go after that.
And I want to make the point really quick that and maybe this is a clarification, on the agenda it says the recommendation that City Council extend the timeline for the TRC to fulfill its charge. So I don't think that, unless we want to make a different agenda item next time, when we have to just talk about that stuff, since it's very specific to extending the timeline only.
Yeah, I think maybe you could, I guess there could be a motion where it would extend the timeline indefinitely or something like that.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, I think for public notice, if you wanted to make it a permanent board, the public should be given a little better notice. But
yeah,
I still think with how the agenda item is written, if you just put indefinitely, I think that would probably still work.
Okay. Commissioner Dillard, if you want to go ahead, and then Commissioner Rivera.
I just had a clarifying question for this. This vote on whether to recommend to the City Council, when would this go to the City Council? Is that in 2 weeks from Tuesday?
Well, technically, it would be part of your draft minutes, so they would see those because the draft minutes are published in information packets.
But since they they deferred our minutes, do you think that would mean that they probably would wait till the 30th?
I don't know if I know what you mean by deferred their minutes.
I thought that they didn't vote on approving or looking at them and wanted to wait till the 30th.
I think
Okay. Well, I mean, technically, the minutes, when you make recommendations to the city council, technically, they don't go onto their formal agenda until those minutes are approved by the TRC. So it would, technically, they wouldn't be on a council formal agenda under consent until after your next meeting, where you would approve the minutes from tonight. And then it looks like the council would meet again on November 16th.
November 6th?
16th. So it would be a part of their agenda for that meeting, those approved minutes would be. Now, whether there's any action or anything that comes of that, I mean, that's in their purview. They would be part of their packet.
Thank you for the clarification.
A point that I wanted to make is, I don't think that it needs to be an either-or thing. I think that we can say logistically that there needs to be an end date for the Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission because, I mean, none of the 9 of us can or should be on this commission forever, right? I think that other people should filter in and we should have a plan for that. I agree absolutely that there should be a permanently installed Truth and Reconciliation Commission to do this work and continue to make recommendations and continue to liaise with organizations that hopefully we're going to build partnerships with. I think that with whatever timeline we decide on as a commission, when we make that recommendation to City Council for here's what we'd like an extension for the Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation for, we need to also submit a rough timeline or projected timeline of what we hope to accomplish in that time, or else they're never going to grant us that time. Us saying we need more time, but we don't have a plan for how to use that time is not going to work very well for us. And so we need to have an idea of, again, the function, the structure of this commission and how we're going to do our work, which is, I think, why we need to have some other ideas in place before we submit that recommendation. If we, and I hope we do, make a recommendation at the same time to that a permanent TRC is created after the end date of this Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we also need to submit new charges and a new mission, at least as recommendations or suggestions for City Council, so that we're putting the least amount of effort on them as possible, so that they can just kind of say yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it sounded like we had a plan. That's all. I feel like we already had a plan that's kind of in play, and that's a plan that doesn't sound like to me it can't be repeated every time. If we always have this platform, I feel like whatever groups throughout whatever time need to come in have the opportunity. And that's why I feel like just inviting people in, if we have a longer extended period of time or unlimited period of time, then every time we have a meeting is when we can give people an opportunity to let their voice be heard every single time. And I do agree that we shouldn't, there's nothing permanent about us or anything along those lines, but I believe that to put your heart and soul into something and make sure you stick with it for X amount of time will give a lot more opportunity for things to get done. But a time frame of changeover that's appropriate. I mean, that's appropriate for everything, but at the same time, having people who have been on for X amount of time can be very helpful in passing a torch. And for example, those of you who've already been on since the beginning, you guys are extremely helpful when it comes down to knowledge and how to and all of the above for anybody that's stepping in like we did. And I feel like that's the most helpful, is to kind of keep a few of us on there and then pass on the torch to make sure that we don't get agendas in the mix more than anything else. And that's what I'm worried about. I don't want things to get replaced only to get died down, to get pushed under the carpet, to disappear. That's the one thing that I'm worried about more than anything else, because it seems like it's gotten pushed in that direction, and every time we have to bump a meeting down or discuss something again later, it gets easier and easier for that to happen. So that's my only fear with that, but I respect and understand your thoughts, and I appreciate them.
Cal's had a hand up for a while. don't know if y'all saw that.
Say again?
Mr. Cowles had a hand up for a while.
Yes, Kyle, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, she.
I think Commissioner Dillard had her hand up a while ago as well. Or sorry, Daniel.
Commissioner Daniel, did you have something?
I did not.
I guess just to close out the conversation on this, sounds like we're still not in a place to make concrete decision between us, but I think that we can just use the community groups we do talk to and ask them their opinions on how long they think it should be. That could give us more backing in terms of the timeline. But regardless of what action we take, I think their hands are tied and that it's not going to be an easy decision for council regardless. Because again, it says in here, whereas the city council recognizes that for truth and reconciliation process to be meaningful, it must include bold action to confront privilege, stimulate difficult conversations, etc. Also goes on to say that TRC shall be facilitated by an independent consultant funded by the city with expertise in group facilitation and human rights. I want to really note funded by the city. So again, the way that this is written, this is not successful in any way whatsoever unless those two things especially are done. So if this comes to a conclusion without those two things happening, kind of, well, for the political side of it, doesn't bode very well. Also not spending very much or anything of the millions set aside also doesn't look very good. So it's less on us, more on them. It's not easy for them. So the longer they wait, the tougher it is on them.
Yeah,
I would like to hear why they don't want a Truth and Reconciliation Commission at all. I would love to hear that.
Oh,
because two people left. I got to be frank about
It's a
that.
pain in their ass. I mean, let's just be honest, right? Like, this is a lot of extra.
And you know what? I'm kind of glad we're talking about this because I don't really know what's going on. So why exactly, we don't have to name names, but two people left the commission or two people, were they voted off? Or did they choose to leave?
They resigned.
But this has nothing.
One was, this has some, we can't talk, yeah.
Can we move on to the next agenda item?
Just a moment before we move on.
Yeah.
Just to go back to what Chair Trory was saying to wind up. I just don't want us to lose a piece of what Commissioner Rivera said, that before we even ask for an extension, to really put down, to lock in our timeline on and the activities that we are the activities that we are doing, the timeline, and the expense, so that justifies what Commissioner Ali was saying. We are clear on what we are going to ask for, and then based on our timeline, the activities, and the budget, and that kind of also addresses the points, Commissioner Traore, you've talked about, because it ties in our charge and the needs that go, what we need to carry out that charge, which includes the budget and the use of the city funding and the need for a facilitator. So I didn't want us to lose that, so that we're not just going and talking wildly to the council. Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, that's all well and good. We can definitely do it in that way. Let's just remember, again, there's no guarantee that they take any budget or whatever it is. So less about what they're going to do, more on what we would like to see. So.
Yeah, I always just think of something and it makes me just reflect more. So this is going to be quick and short, but makes me reflect more. Like, why do we have a deadline to go see about the racial and social injustices they've been doing without a deadline? They've been doing it for hundreds of years. So why would you have a deadline to stop it? But they have unlimited time to do this. the social and racial injustice has been going on forever. They don't have a deadline for that. And with that, I'm the yield.
Just an answer to that, from what I've looked at, through TRCs, I usually have a time limit, and I'm thinking that's where our city council was coming from, and I'm thinking that's something we can recommend at the end of our facts, that we would want a permanent one, and also justify and looking. But from what I've been looking at, TRCs are usually not permanent. But we already have a lot of arms that deal with racial injustice. They just haven't worked, and that's the evidence we are collecting. Last I counted, I think we had like 7 or 6 centers of justice in the county. So, and with that, I'll stop. So that my point was just that they usually have a time limit, and they are given a time limit. So, and right now, we have one, and yeah.
I think in the interest of, so the way the agenda item's written, I guess we could just choose to have this discussion at another time. So it doesn't sound like we're going to come to a consensus, and don't want to just decide this on yes or no votes when it sounds like there isn't a concrete decision on whether to go for a specific timeline or rather indefinite.
Right, I agree.
Does that sound good to everyone? Just continue this?
Can you
another
maybe
time?
do a motion to just defer the agenda item to a later time? And that way the record's a little clearer as to what the group wanted to do.
Like to make a motion to defer this agenda item for another time.
Second.
Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathawa,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Novus,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 10, discussion and vote whether to do a request for proposals for a facilitator for the TRC. Just want to give the community a chance to comment on this before we continue. Okay. So whether to do a request for proposals for a facilitator for the TRC. However we get a facilitator, I don't really care how it's done, whether it's an RFP, whatever, as long as we have people that are willing to help guide the efforts of this and make a repeatable process, then that's cool with me. I don't know that, Stephanie, is it required that anyone hired by a commission has to be brought in by an RFP?
No, does not require that, but what I will say is any agreement that the TRC wants to enter into with the facilitator would still be within the purview of the city council to either approve or not approve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the thing for the proposals is it might hold more weight to rather get the community groups or leaders in and working with us first, and then put the request for proposals out afterwards. So it's one thing to deny someone from an application if they haven't engaged directly with that work, but if they're currently working on it and proving that they can do it, that's much harder. So, and that also stops us from waiting looks like minimum of around 7 to 8 weeks to get through that process anyways.
When I calculated it out, just looking at a calendar, I think at the earliest, it would be on, if you look at the second to last bullet point, prepare council packet materials, take to council for approval on purchase order. You would probably be looking at January 18th. When I looked at their meeting schedule and then kind of mapped out these time figures that were put in the parentheses.
Yeah, just bring the community members in, bring community leaders in, start working with them, do the RFP stuff, and in tandem and send it out, because otherwise we just wait for the facilitator. It's just pointless.
They've turned out 2 of our facilitators, correct?
No.
They accepted one, turned down the other, and one of the members, Eduardo, is volunteering now to help.
Yeah, so I don't think, yeah. As long as we don't need to get RFP, I mean, I'm done with this. It's whatever ideas you guys have, so.
You know, I think a number of commissioners might disagree with me on this, and that's okay, but I really don't. I think that if we are able, like you were saying, to sort of organize a way to get a facilitator in tandem during, as we're already sort of doing the work, then that's fine. But I certainly don't think that we need to make this sort of the next goalpost before we start doing the work.
Exactly.
It's 10 months into the creation of the Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and all we've really accomplished is trying to figure out what our mission is, trying to figure out a decorum of structure, trying to figure out what our budget's going to be, trying to figure out our facilitator, and we haven't really done anything else. And so I want to spend as little time talking about facilitator as possible moving forward.
I agree.
I agree.
I absolutely agree. I feel like constantly looking for a facilitator is wasting time. I agree with that. Absolutely. We are all adults, and we need to be professional adults when we're having discussions amongst each other. Whatever we have to do it, let's just do it. If it means we got to cut a mic or something like that and say, look, X amount of time, this is the time you get. You don't get to run off because you're friends with anybody or anything like that. No. You cut it off right at the source, and then you move on. We have real important issues to really take care of. And discussing about somebody to help us do it every time is definitely not the way. I hope we don't get stuck on it anymore at all. Let's move.
Nope. Use the people that's willing to help us. They don't want any money, and the people that's willing to help us. That's it. I don't want to go through that. And one of the main reasons is when it didn't work, I was sitting right there next to Mohammed, and I could just see the defeat on his face. Like, I was up to 3 o'clock in the morning, and these guys just, so no, it's not worth it no more.
You want to just defer this one then, in that case, sounding like?
Yep, so we could figure out a more concrete statement.
Daphne?
Well, sorry. Why do we keep deferring? I'm like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been quiet the past few meetings because I don't want to add more to the conversations, because the conversations are taking a long time and we're talking about the same things over and over. So maybe next meeting, I might propose for the agenda some kind of conversation that will just come to some kind of definitive answer on certain things. Like, we just have to make decisions and keep going. Like, it's kind of one of the reasons why we keep going around and around is because we aren't making those decisions. And that's just my opinion, though. Like, I know that, other folks might feel differently about it, but we need to be bold, and we just need to, do what we need to do. And regardless of whether or not the city council agrees with us or not, like, we're not politicians. We're here for a very different reason, and we need to stick to the very mission of Truth and Reconciliation, which is allowing people to testify and then letting them speak about different issues, that concerns them in different realms. And I don't think we really need subcommittees to do that. Like, we could literally just set up a series of meetings on different issues that affect people, like sustainability, like education, like policing, and just go to the community and ask people to speak, and then put together a report after that. And yes, it would be great to have the fancy folks to do that for us, but I mean, I can't keep doing this. It's getting very frustrating. And I just want to be honest about it.
I completely agree with all of that, but I just want to say again that I think that yes, the truth-telling events, et cetera, have to happen, but it's pointless to go to something and just tell people to come to speak, because we're more than likely going to get one person, two people, or no one, because we don't have that trust or recognition in the community. What it takes for someone to just come out publicly and just speak like that, knowing it's going to be recorded, knowing it's going to be brought in and in public archives for good, that's a lot. So we need to make sure we're connecting with these community groups first, having their leaders actually ask them to do so or help us set up the events and go that route. And the other thing is, in terms of the recordings, we need, where are we storing these things? Who actually is doing the recording with us? Because the city wants it to be city staff or whoever it is. But I personally think that that is a no-go for probably 90% plus of the people that would want to participate. Who wants to talk bad about what the government has done to them directly to the government that has done bad to them and think that it's actually going to change something? We all do that all the time. So they're going to want to speak to someone independent. So there's some logistic things, have to figure those out, but the real thing is building that rapport, trust with the community leaders.
Commissioner Daniel has her hand
Go
up. I
ahead.
would like to give her an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, because we should go past this one.
So, thank you. And yes, well, I don't want us to go into the politics or talking about people or doing any of that. This is not the forum for that. What I'm trying to get to is the problem with the commission? It is what can we do to fix the problem if it is with us? If the problem is with the overall structure, like the structure of the TRC was ill-conceived and doesn't, in theory it works, but in practice it doesn't, we should look at that. But if the problem is really personal failings or the politics surrounding this, we should recognize that we can make all the decisions we want, but it's not going to change those personal grudges. It's not going to change the politics. The politics changes with elections. The personal grudges changes when people grow up. So I do think sometimes we're taking it upon ourselves, like we're kind of hard on ourselves. Like we're not making decisions and people don't have faith in us. They don't know what we do. But
We aren't the city council. We're separate from them.
No, I understand we're separate from the city council, but there seems to be a lot of issues there between.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was saying that
members of
in support for what you said. Sorry.
Oh no, that's just. I don't know what the problem is, but I kind of feel like we're all kind of taking it upon on the commission, and I think we're putting too much pressure and I don't know. I just, as I'm listening to, I kind of feel bad that we haven't been able to do more, but I also recognize maybe the problem isn't with us. And with that, I yield.
And just to be mindful that the discussion is steering around whether or not a facilitator would assist or not with some of the things that Commissioner Nobis has mentioned, Commissioner Daniel, just wanting to make sure that it's in the context of whether or not a facilitator could serve in a capacity that would either assist or it's not necessary for the TRC to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Stephanie. And just to tie my comments in with the focus, what I was thinking is if there are issues and we've identified them and the facilitator can help with those issues, that's a reason to say we need the facilitator. But if the issues are not ones that the facilitator can even help with, then that's something we just need to think about. But it sounds, to me at least, it sounds like most of our problems with facilitator would probably do a good job at helping us solve.
Do we all honestly?
And with that, I yield.
I'm sorry. Do we all honestly believe we need a facilitator?
That's what I was going to bring up. Thank you for bringing it up.
Right.
I was going to suggest that I think we table talk about a facilitator until like a majority vote that we add that subject back to the agenda. I think that if we, again, engage key community partnerships, they can act as mini facilitators that help connect us with communities, right? We lean on them to help us. And then we also have Eduardo and his team, advise us in helping us steer and keep guiding our work. But, I think that if we have those two things in place, then we probably don't need a facilitator, and we can just keep working until we decide, hey, we're really missing this role. Let's bring the facilitator back into discussion and decide what we want them to do and how soon we want them to do it. So my suggestion, it's not a motion at this point. I think that we should have more discussion, but I think that we just stop talking about the facilitator until we decide that we need it.
Chastity, do you have anything?
Yeah, Chastity, go.
I was actually going to talk about things that Stephanie pointed out are not part of the agenda, but back to the facilitator discussion. I actually think that we could use a facilitator, but it's not imperative right now. I think there are definitely aspects of facilitator that Kearns and West was going to provide for us that would be very useful in the end, especially putting the recommendations and proposals together. So as long as we're not taking it off the table forever, I'm okay with moving forward with just pushing it to the side for now.
Yeah.
What role are we exactly wanting the facilitator to fill?
Honestly, I think that that's a reason to put it off to the side for now, of that fact of need the community members to actually come in and speak on it, does risk that stonewalling once again, et cetera. But the only reason we do need a facilitator is because of the way that the resolution is written. It's required that for it to be fulfilled, there has to be an independent consultant that's a facilitator working with the TRC.
Okay.
So it has to be in mind at some point before it's over, so we can still bring in people from the community, have them work with us, do the RFPs, et cetera. Don't have to make the concrete decision on how we get one now, but we have to have one before we're done.
But the city doesn't want us to have.
We don't want to hire one.
Outside.
So at the very end of our work, we say, listen, we had all of these key community group leaders facilitate us. We list them all out, and we list Eduardo and say, these were our facilitators.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then at that point, it's on them for how much they want to pay them, because that's the other key part of that resolution number. They have to also pay them.
They have to pay them.
So bring in, again, as many people as possible, et cetera. But, yeah.
What was the reason why before they didn't want the
None at all.
facilitators? It was because of the pricing?
There were 4 or 5 different ones. The pricing, the contracted amount was agreed to. The people themselves were not agreed to. So it's not about the money. It's about whatever else it was. So.
And because it wasn't just a case.
Yeah.
So does anyone have anything else regarding this that last
Yeah.
agenda item
let it
before
know.
we move on to commissioner and staff comments? Announcements, I mean, sorry.
No.
All right.
Okay, because of how this item is
Have
set
to
up,
do
I
that,
think, if the commission doesn't want to pursue at this time a request for a proposal for a facilitator, then there'll still be a vote on that.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you can't come back in 2 weeks and say, you know what, we want to reevaluate that. It would just be taking a motion on whether to do a RFP for a facilitator for the TRC as of your feelings tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to make, this is Rivera, I'd like to make a motion that we defer a vote and discussion on a facilitator until majority of the commission decides that we need to revisit this subject.
Commissioner Ali seconds.
Okay, and I just want to clarify, considering whether the TRC needs a facilitator is different than whether the TRC wants to consider a facilitator using the RFP process.
Okay.
Consider,
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, the motion would just be looking at whether or not you want to consider a facilitator as of this meeting this evening using the RFP process.
Okay. Can I take back my motion? I move that I'd like to make a motion that we, at this point, don't submit a request for proposals for a first facilitator for the TRC.
Second.
Okay, take roll call. Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Let me see, hold on. I want to make sure we have everybody. I don't see one. Commissioner Nobis? I
She's off.
don't see anyone in the attendees.
Yeah, it dropped off.
She's
Okay. Commissioner Rivera
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Now on to agenda item number 11, announcements of commissioners, staff. TRC members shall not engage in discussion with one another concerning said announcements. So I want to start with letter that, thank you to Eduardo Gonzalez for one, but helped connect us with the Mali Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So for those of you that don't know, Mali is my family's home country. Eduardo's there right now. And so the president of their TRC sent a letter that we just received earlier this morning. So it reads, Dear Mr. Traore, I am honored to address this letter to you as president of the Commission of Truth, Vérité, Justice et Réconciliation du Mali, so Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation of Mali, to express to you my brotherly feeling and wish that success crown the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Iowa City that you preside over. The Mali's CVJR was set up in 2015 to investigate the facts and root causes of the violent crises that have affected Mali since the beginning of its independent life. Our job has consisted of receiving more than 22,000 testimonies in all regions of our country. We have worked with civil society to produce an effective redress policy, and we have held public hearings to listen to the voices of victims. In 2022, we will publish our final report with our main findings and recommendations, and we'll finish our job. I was able to learn about the creation of your TRC thanks to our professional relationships with the expert Eduardo Gonzalez, whom we have known since the beginning of our work and who is a part of the nation community of legal experts transitional from the United States. Through the news media, we receive painful information about racial discrimination in your country. From our country, Mali, we have fraternal links with the African diaspora, violently uprooted from our continent, the era of slavery in which continues today, and the drama of refugees and in the experience of migrants. Be assured that throughout your task, so important for your city and your country, you will always count on our experiences and our fraternal support. Regards, Ousmane Oumarou Sidibé, Commander de l'Ordre National, Commander of the National Order. So, with that, a few things just want to point out. One, they started in 2015, and they're just finishing in 2022. I think that's important in the fact that Mali didn't fall to the French until the 1890s and didn't become its own country until the 1950s. Compare that to how long the United States has been around and how long that we have for our commission. Next, 22,000 testimonies. Worked with civil society. So that means people in power. And that's important as well of the presidents and people in power that in Mali for years and years and years, lots of issues, corruption, 2 coups in the last year, a coup and something else that some people may not want to call one. But through all of that, 7 years, they're going to finish. And we have them to lean on in terms of support, asking questions, how it's gone. And I think that's just one really important thing to remember. And especially to just compare that to where we are now. But what it really is just continually confirming for me is that this is something I kind of wanted to wait a while to say, but better sooner rather than later, starting to get more questions about it. I don't believe that this has to be something completely tied to city council or to the city government. I was reading that they're working with civil society. You don't exactly have to be with some great government or have the best relationships, whatever it is, to move forward and do the job. If people show up, then it's gonna get done. You can only resist the people for so long. That's why the last president of Mali, a year ago, was taken out of power. Eventually, the people speak, and everyone listens. So just, yeah, keep that in mind, and don't let whatever little things happen here and there get us down on it. Disbanded, whatever it is, you decide to leave, whatever it is, completely understand. But also just know that that doesn't mean the job is ever over. And with that, I yield.
This is Commissioner Rivera. As we're heading into the cold season, I'd just like to remind my fellow commissioners in the community to keep in mind the organizations in the community who are specifically servicing our unhoused neighbors. I see mutual aid, the shelter house, both in different ways to reach out to our unhoused neighbors who are at really great need during the winter time. So be paying attention to what their needs might be. Thank you.
It's Commissioner Johnson. Right now, I am in the process of getting things squared away business-wise. However, as soon as things are settled, every avenue that we possibly can to help the community is the direction that we're heading in. And however we can help out, we are always here and willing, and have a small little core group that is willing to push forward and help our community a little bit more, and we're just going to be growing as we go. So we always have a headquarters to work in. If we don't have this facility or anything like that, we always have any facility that I have. I'm willing to make sure that we can use that to help fight forward and do what we have to do to make things a little bit easier. So that's all I have right now.
This is Eric Harris. So I was going to make this comment earlier, but I feel like it was more of an announcement, but it would have helped with the conversation that we were having about how we're going to gather people, or where we're going to find people, or we don't want to get too many people, or how we're going to get them. Are we going to use flyers? Are we going to, use advertisements? Well, something has happened with me that will help really great with what we're trying to get done. So earlier this week, I was offered a job position at the Dream Center as the fatherhood life coach. That means I will facilitate a weekly group with about 10 guys and help them mediate things that they may have going on in their life, whether it's court battles, whether it's trying to see their children. And of course, while I work there, I'm going to look for people that have gone through things and try, to get them to help us with the videos. I made the pledge a few weeks ago that we're going to have to start doing this on our own. And so that's why I decided to take this job. I started in the first week of November, and I'm going to talk with Fred about, do we have any loopholes to jump over? If, these guys are my clients, will I be able to get, I'm talk to them just to make sure that I can get, because some of these guys, they got, they got criminal things going on. They have family law things going on. They can't find jobs. They can't find apartments, and they need help with that. So I'm proud to announce that, and I'm also going to do everything I can to be able to help us find the people that we need to talk to. And with that, I yield.
Anything, Steph?
No, before we go to Steph.
I think we have
Looks like
Daphne.
Daniel, though.
Oh.
This is Commissioner.
Yes, Daphne first.
Okay.
Commissioner Gaffawa could go.
Okay, thank you. I have 3 announcements. One is that a team from the African Community Network, we are still going ahead in planning how we will collect facts and truths from the African communities. We continue with our weekly meetings, which happen on Sunday at 3 p.m. My other announcement is in relation to the TRC work. Yesterday I came from Kenya, moving into Iowa City. Yesterday, Kenya celebrated what we call Mashujaa Day. In Swahili, that means Heroes Day or Freedom Fighters Day. These are the people who fought, and a lot of them died. And that is why our flag has red in it, because of the blood that was shed by these heroes. And green is for life, the freedom that we have. Black is for our skin color. White is our international boundaries, because we are a republic. 63 years ago, Kenya became independent. We fought oppression and colonization from the British and from the white man. So as I serve in the commission, I remember even in my current home today, I and the children that I've brought up in Iowa City are still fighting that. And right now, Kenyans in diaspora, the majority of them, you'll find them wearing the Kenyan flag. To remember that, and to remember that the injustice and the oppression based on skin color still continue in the world for people who are not white. My other announcement is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and next week we are coming to the end of the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there are 3 events that we are closing with. And when I talk of closing, it's the partners and allies who form the Coalition of Domestic Violence in Johnson County. The first event is on 27th. This is by Monsoon organization, which gives services to survivors who identify as Asians. And on 28th, we have an award ceremony at the public library. This is by the Major Domestic Violence Intervention Program. And on 29th at 6 p.m., this one I already forwarded to the commissioners through our staff. We are having, NISA is having an event, an online discussion, a Zoom discussion, led by our youth in turn. And the major targeted audience is our young male youth, because it's documented in the world. Sexual violences, the statistics are higher as far as males are concerned. So for the future, we target the young male, but everyone is welcome in the discussion, because we can all learn something from each other. With that, I yield. Thank you.
I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements, if I can have the floor.
Go ahead.
Okay. So tomorrow marks the second annual Katie Day of Service, named after, dedicated
A late Iowa Supreme Court Chief Justice named
You went out kind of, Commissioner Daniel. I don't know if you can.
Iowa. That was a very progressive.
We still can't hear you that good.
Graduated from Drake. That's where he got his law degree. So there's a lot of information.
Commissioner,
Is it from here?
no, it's because it was fine and then it just. Commissioner Daniel, can you start over and maybe, I don't know, it sounds like something changed on your end and it's very difficult to hear you. It's almost a whisper.
Daphne, can you hear me?
Commitment to public service. And at that really.
I don't think she can hear us. Yeah.
Mic thing isn't moving.
She was my first boss at Iowa Legal Aid, and she spent nearly 40 years.
She'll answer my phone call.
A signal turd. We can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh.
No, we can't hear you, but.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, if you start doing the announcement now, you're good.
Okay. We'll consider that like a dress rehearsal. So tomorrow, October 22nd, is the Mark S. Katie Day of Service. And the Katie Day of Service was dedicated to the late Iowa Supreme Court Justice, Justice Mark Katie, who unexpectedly died. He died very suddenly on November 15th, 2019. And he's best known for the 09 decision that he wrote, and it was a unanimous court decision that legalized same-sex marriage in the state of Iowa. Justice Katie was very committed to public service, and Drake Law School, which is his alma mater, has a variety of Katie Day projects that they have on their website. People can take a look at, and those projects range from legal clinics to food drives for people and pets. So it's worth checking out. And Justice Katie's commitment to public service also ties to the sad news that Jan Rutledge, a Iowa city attorney, she passed away recently, and she spent nearly 40 years at Iowa Legal Aid as an attorney. She was very instrumental in establishing Iowa Legal Aid's housing advocacy, including some very pivotal cases in the 80s and the early 90s regarding segregation and subsidized housing. The Press Citizen really got it right when they said that Jan never hesitated to remind us a full and fair education is perhaps the most potent tool there is for breaking the chains of generational poverty. Because by the time I joined Iowa Legal Aid, she was known as the education law guru. And so I wanted to announce that her passing, and then also say RIP, and really I want to honor her memory. And then I want to tie this all in by saying October 5th was World Teachers Day. And I didn't say anything at our last meeting because I was here. So I just want to say it's an official UNESCO holiday, and I want to thank all the teachers for all they do. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Daphne. Oh,
Thank you.
Kevo's got one more announcement.
Sorry, but I just also forgot to mention that October is Filipino American Heritage Month. So holla at the Filipinos in our community. and they're great, and I think you all should appreciate them. Thank you.
Hello. Staff no announcement, right? Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
second.
Cool.
And
Okay.
with that,
Bye,
we're adjourned.
Daphne.